Chapter 19. Mister, please don't take my car. This is the repo where I got the name for the book. I thought if I ever write a book, I'm gonna title it "Mister, Please Don't Take My Car" because of what happened on this repo. I had an account in a rural area in Walker County, Alabama. The address was on a county road way out in the country. I think it was Brakefield Dairy Road or Wells Loop, somewhere out there west of Jasper. The car was a small sedan, I believe something like a Chevy Chevette or something like that. And I went to the given address late one night. It was pretty late and the car was in the driveway. The car wasn't in too good a shape. It was dented, it was dirty, the tires didn't look that good. The windshield was cracked. I'm sure it wasn't worth much to the finance company. But I had an order to pick it up, and I had a job to do. I backed up to it, and as I did, I woke up some dogs who had been sleeping behind the house. They weren't big, and they weren't aggressive. They were just loud. They came around the house barking like crazy. The debtor came out, and he objected to the repossession, and he ordered me off the property. Well, I complied, and I left. The debtor's attitude was such that, he's not going to give me that car. Your attitude is going to be reflected in my attitude. If you're friendly and reasonable, I'm going to be friendly and reasonable. But if you're rude and arrogant, well, I'll see you're rude and arrogant, and I'll raise you some sneakiness. There ain't going to be no sense trying to talk to this guy again. He's going to object every time, so I have to go to plan B. A few nights later, I returned to the residence, and this time I parked about a city block away down the gravel road, and I quietly walked back up to the house. It was a quiet night, no winds blowing, just quiet. It was pitch dark that night, one of the darkest nights I can recall, and being out in the middle of nowhere, that didn't help. But going back to the house this time, I was armed. No, these dogs are not going to hinder me tonight. I'm armed with a pack of bologna. The dogs barked a couple of times, but tossing slices of bologna like a frisbee, I was able to pacify the dogs from a distance. After a few pieces of bologna, they decided that they liked me. They liked me so much they followed me back down to the truck as I went back and got the Go Jacks. Now, Go Jacks are a wonderful invention. Think of two large rolling pins on a frame with a wheel at each end. 4 wheels on the bottom, and I think they were invented for use in a repair shop, like moving cars around in a repair shop. But you put these, Go Jacks on each side of the tires, the drive tires, and there's a foot pedal. You push the foot pedal down, and as you push the pedal down, the rolling pins sort of come together, and as they come together, they lift that tire off the ground. So if you don't have a key or the wheels won't turn, then you can move the vehicle. Well, once you got the wheel off the ground, you can push the vehicle wherever you want it to go. I used them regularly. I've gone up to a front wheel drive car parked in the driveway, and I've jacked it up with Go Jacks. And one time I was outside the front door, and I jacked them up, and as I got the last one up, got the other tire off the ground, and the car would roll. The debtor opened the door. Well, as he opened the door, I just shoved the car, and it was a level area, so I wasn't worried about it rolling off. I just shoved the car, and I turned around to him, and the car just quietly rolled out into the driveway. And I said, "Man, I did my thing. Hey, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry I didn't get here yesterday. I got tied up. I didn't mean to disturb you. I'll get this car out of here as quick as I can." Once you get it off on private property, it's yours. Going back to the Chevette in Walker County, it's front wheel drive, so it's going to need Go Jacks on the front wheels if I'm going to get that car out of the driveway. And again, I could see lights flickering on the living room curtains tonight, and so somebody's in the living room, so I'm going to have to be especially quiet and not think about him. Throwing bologna and petting dogs, I jacked both front wheels of the Chevette up. When I pushed the car, and it was a gravel driveway, but it was packed pretty hard, so I was able to do it. It took a lot, but I pushed the car out into the road, out down the driveway and out into the road. Once I got it in in the road. Go Jacks don't roll real well. They have small tires. But I managed to get it into the road, and I quietly took the Go Jacks off and placed them in the back of my truck. Well, it's still parked about a block or so down the road. I went back to the pickup truck with the sling lift, and I got my J-hooks, and I came back to the car. The car's in the road now, and I put the J-hooks on one side and laid the chains over to the side, and put the other J-hook on and laid the chain over to the side. You lay the chain over to the side so you don't back over it and park on it when you come back to pick it up, because that's going to be a problem. You're going to have to move, and you're going to be longer in the strike zone, so to speak. So I go back to my truck. I took a deep breath. I cranked it up, and I drive up to the car. I swing around in front of the car. I lowered my lift, and I backed up to the car. Now, I'd already, put the hooks on the car. That meant, it's going to take me 5 seconds to jump out of the truck, go back there, and just throw the chain over the hook on each side, and I'll be gone. I get back in the truck, put it in drive, and saturate the place with my absence again. It worked like clockwork. I cranked up the truck, put it in drive, whipped around the car, threw it in reverse, backed up to the car while lowering the lift. The little Chevette rocked a little as I hit it with a sling. It was about to be snagged and dragged. I jumped out of the truck, sprinted back to the chains, and hooked them up to the lift. It only took a couple of seconds, but in those few seconds, while I was out hooking up that crummy car, I heard a voice that still haunts me today. It was probably one of the saddest things that I've heard, and it still bothers me. It was a lady's voice. I never saw her, but I heard her. From out of the darkness of the front porch, the lady's voice in a pleading tone said, "Mister, please don't take my car." I ignored her, jumped in the truck, and left. That's been many, many years ago, and I still feel bad when I think about her. I guess her husband was asleep, or maybe at work. That house was an old wood frame house. The house wasn't worth much. I'm sure they were a relatively poor couple. This was probably their only means of transportation, and I'd just taken it. I know. I ought to be ashamed of myself, and I am. I'm ashamed of myself, but somebody had to do it. I've always felt terrible about having to take that vehicle, but somebody had to do it. I try to be nice, but if you want to play hardball, I can play hardball too. I'll be honest with you, though, that repo still haunts me to this day. And if this manuscript ever turns into a book, like I said, the title is going to be Mr. Please Don't Take My Car. But you know what? I've prayed for that couple many, many times throughout the years. Sometimes you really feel sorry for the debtor, and sometimes you don't.